What is going on, everybody? My name is John. Here I'm with Tim, and today we're gonna be interviewing probably one of the most I don't know. I don't know what to say, but probably one of the most influential person that I've had in my life recently. Tim, this is who is this man to you?
I think it might be my dad.
We're gonna be interviewing Steve today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share so we can keep this rolling and use that as motivation to keep it going. We appreciate you guys tuning in week after week, going over the Rest Up podcast and just us growing in our relationship with one another and our faith. And stick around because it is going to be fun. Roll that intro. All right, well, welcome back from the intro. So, Steve, are we sure that's your name? Like, who are you?
I guess that's what my parents called me when I was born. So yeah, that's my name, Steve.
All right, Mr. Steve. Who are you? Where are you from? Like, what makes Steve Steve?
Oh my gosh, that's a long story short. So yeah.
Oh, we got time.
I'm Steve Pyatt. So we moved here in the United States 9 years almost again, next year from France. It was a journey. We just sold everything that we had, and we decided to go with a different life. We used to live in France, close to the border of Switzerland. I used to work in finance, and I was just tired of it.
So you were smart.
I don't know. You tell me. But yeah, no, I was just tired of it. I wanted to start a new life. I wanted to live a life that honors God. And I felt like, in the past, I wasn't in that situation. So I feel like I'm blessed to be here. God brought us here, and we're happy to be here.
All right, so I do have one question for you. What do you feel like is one of your biggest skill sets that you use as a your day to day? Like, what do you feel like is one skill that you feel like you've learned over time that you use to your advantage?
That's a good question, actually. I've learned, I've done a lot of different things. I have a lot of different experiences. I've been working at the bank. I've been working as a leader, like an entrepreneur. So, I kind of mix these two skills. I mean, set of skills, and that's what brought me here. I don't know if I'm the most talented, but I love what I'm doing, and I love my job. I love working with my boys. We have a great team, and it's a fun business.
Okay. So what do you do? What do you manage? Like, what are you in charge of?
Are we doing advertising?
No,
Okay.
no. No. But just give them a little backstory about yourself, and and a good introduction, if you would.
Sure. So yeah. So like I said, I used to work in finance, and I was just tired of it. I wanted to do something completely different. And, since we were planning on moving in Florida, what would be the best activity than renting boats and jet skis, So I wanted something fun. I want something in relation with nature. And yeah, we have everything that we love here.
All right. Awesome. So you do a little bit, you've done a little bit of everything is basically what you're saying. So, all right. Well, since you guys now know a little bit about Steve, now it's time to ask the hard questions. All right. Are you ready for this, Steve? So, when did you know the Lord was true?
That's a good question. I would say I had many different, experiences with God. So it started very young. But then, my life was I would say that my relationship with God was on and off
Okay.
for a while, especially in my younger age. And back in France, we didn't have a church. We didn't have a Christian, a community to rely on.
Like Christian culture.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, truthfully, I was born and raised in the Seventh Day Adventist church. My grandpa was a pastor, so every time I would come and visit my grandparents in Canada, we would be very close to God. But as soon as I would, travel back home, back to France, everything was more, complicated. Christianity and religion in general in France is not the best. Let's put it that way. So I've been mocked many times as a younger man in France for being Christian and for believing in God. So it was on and off. I would say that because every time I would talk to my grandpa was my mentor, in Christ. He was really the guy who I would turn to every time I would need, advice, directions, prayers. He was the number one person that I would call. So being far away from him, because my grandparents used to live in Canada, and we used to live in France. So being far from them, it wasn't easy.
Tim, I think it's your turn to ask him a good question. Have you been thinking some up?
I have.
All right, perfect. Did you write some down?
No.
Oh, okay, even better.
They're all in here.
Right off the dome.
So you mentioned church in France. So can you elaborate more on that? Because now that you've seen both, what is the difference between a church that you would see in France, at least your church, and then a church that you got to experience here? What are tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So basically, France, I would say 80% of the French people are Catholic. So the Catholic are, like the old church, with the organ. It's very like, quiet church.
Boring.
Yeah, kind of. So there's this, and then like I said, I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist church, which was a church with a lot of good values, but it was still a little old style, church, and there was a lot of constraints. There was more constraints than really explaining and living your life with God. So it was really, you're not supposed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. All these restrictions that I had to go through as a child, and as a child, it was just boring. I just really didn't feel that church was powerful. And when we moved here, and even when I was coming here, in the summertime to my grandparents, I could feel, a different atmosphere. The messages were very, powerful, oriented, and the worship, I learned to play the guitar, and I would play in the band, which was kind of fun.
Oh, snap.
And yeah, I mean, it was fun, So when you have this side, and you go back to France, and you're back to boring, And truthfully, it was 2 months, of fun, and the rest of the year, like 10 months of boring, So not the best churches, right? I mean, I'm not here to blame, the church organization or anything like that. This is just how I felt. And now when we moved here in Melbourne, one of my prayers were, God, give us the right church where we can feel something, where we can, live according to what you want for us. And give us a church where our kids will, get the greatest experience. I did not want them to live the experiences that I lived.
Okay. What is one thing you feel like could change in the churches and the religion side? Like what do you feel like what's the difference that you feel like that they need to change in France that would make you feel the same way about a church here, also in France?
There's a lot of things. I think the message first, and they need to open the doors. The problem in France is that you don't feel really invited. It's. I mean, Tim went to the church that I used to go when I was a kid, and I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's a small church, and it feels like they don't want more people in. It's like, this is our church. We don't want to share. We don't want anybody from the outside to come in because they're not going to follow the rules, and the rules are the most important. So, and here, I mean, when I went to church for the first time here in Melbourne, I could see everybody wearing T-shirts and shorts and flip-flops, And in France, it's not like that. You have to have the right outfit, So you have to wear a suit. Yeah, the ladies have to wear like the dresses and everything. So everything is like, it's not inviting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're basically saying is there's more rules involved in being in the church there instead of just coming and getting fed the word of God.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that does not sound fun. So back to the first question, what was the defining moment for you that you saw God and you were like, that is God and I'm going to follow him the rest of my life? Of course, there's going to be times that you doubt. There's going to be ups and downs. But what is Steve's story that changed your heart to believe?
So you're talking to a 47 years old guy, So I guess the first really emotion that I felt was when I was 16. I was in Canada, and it was I was at a very powerful teen camp, and I was, at that age where you would get fed, by everything, and it was powerful, and the worship and everything and the messages, it really touched my heart, and that's when I decided to give my life to God, and that's when I decided to get baptized, and my grandpa baptized me, so it was very emotional, and it was my first real step with God, I would say.
Okay. So you said you went up and down. Can you explain the times that you felt far away from God and like how you overcame the farness away to get like back on track?
Sure. So like I said, ups and downs due to probably the Christian, community that we were missing. And Christian friends. I mean, when I was in school, I had not one Christian friend, like zero, right? So when I was in school, I was probably the only Christian guy. So at first, I tried, especially when you come back from camp, right? Timmy, you can rely on that. When you come back from a camp, you feel like you're on top of the mountain, and nothing can take you down because you feel like the Holy Spirit has worked on you. And you feel strong, and you feel, confident, and then you go back to your real life, and you realize that life is different. Life is difficult, and from time to time, if you don't have the right people around you, you will just step away from God, right? So, I would say that when I was in France, it was more difficult, and every time I had trials in my life, this is when I came back to God. And every time, I felt like, difficulties or struggles in my life, I turned to God, and God never deceived me.
Do you have any questions, Tim? I got some more cooking up.
Go ahead, John.
All right, so the times that you were away from God, what were some of the things that you feel like God did to show you that he was still there even though you're going through your trials?
Oh, well, that's I mean, the enemy is always gonna tell you the lies that you don't need God, right? but in your heart you feel guilt.
Yeah.
Every time that you step away from God, guilt is always going to be around. And when you think about it, you're like, yeah, I know. That's why you try to. That's when you try to, get better. You try to pray on it. You ask for wisdom. You ask for, directions. And yeah, I mean, every time I have no exception. Every time I pray to God and I ask Him to, to help me, to give me direction or anything like that. I've never been deceived. He's always been here on time, and He's always been knocking on my door. And sometimes I opened the door like wide open. Sometimes I didn't. So I gotta admit, but He never gave up on me, and I'm thankful for that.
That's good. That's real good. So you said so are you a youth leader?
Yes, I am.
You are? Okay.
Mhm.
So is there anything you feel like you've been, obviously you're trying to help feed into the kids that you're the leaders of, but is there anything that you think that they've actually been feeding into you and you've had a realization, you're like, wow, I'm actually learning from them as well?
Yeah, funnily enough, a lot of the parents, they thank me for being, for doing this and that with the boys. But the truth is, they're giving me more that that I'm giving away. So I'm receiving more that I'm giving. That's how I feel. And the reason why I became a leader was because of this guy, because I could see, how he was walking with his God, and how how good the experience was, as he was a ninth grader when he started, and every time he came back from Edge and camp and everything, he had a lot of things to say, and I was kind of jealous. I was like, you know what? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you're like,
wish
I didn't
could
have
be
this
a
in
part of
France.
it, and that's how I slowly but surely got closer to the church, and his youth leader introduced me to Edge, and I jumped in.
You just jumped right in?
Just right in.
Jumped right in. Okay. Is there Tim, you got a question? I'm trying to think of good questions, but at the same time listen to Steve. You got any?
So you're serving now. So what would you say? How has serving been a big part of your life? Because I know that when we were talking about serving, you're like, oh yeah, I want to do this because like that's what God calls us to do. So you felt that nudge in your heart. How did that feel? How did that make you feel? And because I know that you acted on it pretty quick. You were like, I want to do this, and then 3 days later, he was a youth group leader. I was like, okay. But yeah, tell me more about like how did that feel?
Well, you know me, John, right? When I say something, I like to do it.
I don't know about that, but okay. All right, Steve. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, everyone.
We have a few jokes about that, so that's why. But no, truthfully, I felt like God had blessed me. So
Jeez, just like Tim, man.
come on,
Microphone in front of your. Yeah, there you go, Steve. That a boy.
So yeah, now to answer your question, I felt like God has blessed me like so much, bringing us here. The life that we have here is clearly, it's a miracle to me because He lined up everything so perfectly. We met the right persons. Starting with my partner Matt. He, He gave me more than what I was hoping to get. Right? We were blessed above my expectations, and I always thought to myself, what am I doing in return? What am I doing? Because, I asked for a business where I could enjoy, being on the water, and he gave me the biggest boat rental in Central Florida. It's not like a business; it's the largest fleet of boats and jet ski of Florida. You know, when we were looking for this business, long story, I could talk for hours.
Well,
yeah.
dive into the story and you know, you've talked about honestly the miracles that God put in your life to be where you are. So don't be afraid. Go on. We got time. Let's hear the Steve. Let's hear the story about Steve.
So yeah, and matter of fact, I'm writing a book about it because I feel like it.
Wow, shameless
it's
plug. Shameless plug.
But yeah, you know, when we were looking for a business to buy, you know, we were still in France. I was Googling, you know, boat rental place for sale. Right?
You were thinking about this in France?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, boat
absolutely.
rentals were already
2
on your
years.
mind?
It took us 2 years to get here. So
Okay.
2 years of research of a lot of things, right? So imagine, you know, and you know a little bit of our marketing. So I'm Googling boat rental locations for sale in Florida, and guess which one pops up? The first one, 321 boat.
No way.
2 years before we moved here.
2 years?
321 boat, and you know how remarketing works, right? You go to YouTube, 321 boat. You go to Sunbiz or anything, you know, basically any research that I would make, 321 boat would pop up everywhere I would go. And guess who I'm partnering with 2 years later?
The guy.
321 boat.
That is crazy.
You know? So, I mean, this is one of the miracles, but there's a lot of things that God lined up for us, and I'm very, very thankful. And like I said, you know, it took me too long to start serving and to start doing something, you know, just to show my gratitude to, you know, for God. And yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I also have another question. I hope you don't mind, John.
No, not at all. I want to have fun with this. So
All right.
whatever you guys want to do.
All right. So how I see like where we are today is that we're just blessed with opportunity. So like if you look back at like our lives right now, like we're blessed as a family, we're blessed like individually. Like my sister got the opportunity to go to UCF, and it's crazy to think because like we were in France, and if you go to France, what are the only options that you get for college? It's like one community college, and that's about it. And then I was given the chance to play soccer. I won a state championship. This guy is the manager of the 321 boat, one of the biggest fleets the biggest fleets in Florida. My mom is now serving at the church. I mean, like, tell me more, like, how has opportunity affected us as a family and as for you?
It's funny because I was on the phone with my mom, you know, on the way back from Miami today, and my mom was sharing with me that, you know, that it was a difficult time for her because she had to let us go, right? And my mom and I were super close. She's always been my role model. You know, she's an awesome person, and I love her to death. But yeah, she was sharing with me earlier that it was very painful to see us leaving France and leaving her. You know, we used to be very close. We would be together at least once a week, if not more, right? So we would spend a lot of time with her. But she told me something that that brought a little tear in my eyes. She was like, "I know that it was hard for me, but when I see what you guys have accomplished on the other side, I understand why God sent you there. When I see how Tim and Lena, you know, are growing up close to God, close to church, how they get involved.
Who's
in
Lena,
church.
real quick, just for the audience that doesn't know?
Lena is Tim's.
She's a big
sister.
nerd.
She's the sister, so she's she's my first daughter, Lena.
Well, she's your only daughter.
Right, that's true.
Well, wait, what? Your first one? I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say first child, but yeah. So yeah. When she said that, you know, I was like, yeah, you're right. You know, it was hard. You know, the first month, the first years were difficult because, you know, we had no friends when we moved here except for Matt, my partner, who became my best friend pretty quick, right? But other than that, we didn't have any, you know. I mean, we were born and raised where we used to live, so we would know everybody. You go to grocery shopping, you know, you'll find 2, 3, 4 people that you know, and you just talk and talk, and you know, everywhere we go.
Oh, so it's like the average trip to Publix.
Yeah.
Like you'll run into someone.
Mhm.
Okay, I
Always.
get you. I get you.
And when we moved here, we're like, okay, so we don't know anybody. You know, the going grocery shopping didn't last as long, as long as it used to back in France. So yeah. But overall, you know, and now that I see the big picture, 9 years almost later, I see how, you know, God lined up everything, starting with, you know, the right business, the right schools. You mentioned that, Tim, and that's true. We had we didn't know anything about Melbourne, and Timmy ended up being at the one of the best high school for soccer. And guess what? He plays soccer. So he, you know, first year he played, they ended up being the state champion. Isn't
You're a
that crazy?
state champion.
Yeah. You know.
You got that him factor, huh? You're Himothy or him? Are you him, Tim?
Sure.
Okay. Very humble, as you guys can see. Very humble.
I didn't play in the final, so I have to be very humble.
Hey, you still got a ring though. You still got a trophy, right?
A ring's a ring.
A ring is a ring, man. A ring is a ring. Okay. So has being a Christian in America, you feel like, been easier than being it overseas? And yeah, that's going to be the question.
Yeah.
And then I got more.
Yes, it's definitely easier. Honestly, in France, I became ashamed, you know, of the gospel, and I became ashamed because every time I would try to share, you know, my testimony, because I did live some crazy stuff in France as well, you know, and every time, you know, I would try to talk about it around me, you know, people would just, you know, make fun of me and like, do you really believe that God? Oh, that's not possible. That's just, you know, you just had a good star, or you just, you know, you got lucky, or you worked hard. That's why, you know, that's how you got promoted. That's how you got this job. Blah blah blah. You know, and every time I tried to share this, you know, with my close friends, even with my you know, my family. Some of my family are not Christian. Not everyone in my family is Christian. Isabel's family, for example, they never really believed in God. You know, they were like, they would go to church for funerals, weddings, and you know, baptism, baby baptism. That's about it, right? So I could never really share, you know, my stories and my experiences with God with anybody except my mom, actually.
Wow. So there was only one person.
Pretty much, yeah. Because even my brother, he grew up just like me, but he's not into it, unfortunately.
Do you think it's just a matter of time, or do you feel like it's just? Do you feel like there's something that you can do to help that situation?
I hope. I really do hope. Matter of fact, they're coming soon, so I'm hoping to have a talk with
We'll
them.
have to have a part 2. We'll have to have a catch-up session then. We'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'd like to say that definitely for our family there's hope. When we went to France last summer, I told my cousin a little bit about like how my life was going, and he was like, "Dude, I want to live your life." I was like, "All right. Well, you have your own life, and it's gonna be great." And he was like, "Nah, I just want to live your life." But I told him, I was like, "Well, you know what? I think that out of all the things that I've done in my life, the best thing that I've done is give my life to Christ." And he was like so confused. He was like, what do you mean? Like that doesn't make sense. Like you're a state championship. Like that doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Like that's kind of boring. And then so we talked a little more, and he actually became interested. This is what I'll say to everyone. Like we all have influence on others, and so my youth group leader sent a Bible from
French Bible.
Yeah, he sent him a French Bible, and now he has his own Bible. So that's just a start. And apparently that he was asking my grandma questions about the Bible more often. So
Oh, well, that's what's up.
Yeah.
That's a praise report for
It is.
sure.
It
yeah,
is.
That's a praise report.
yeah. So there's hope.
Well, I mean, I think there's hope for everyone.
Yeah,
Because I mean, in my instance, I grew up Jewish, so like when I heard about Jesus, they were just like, yeah, he was a guy that walked the earth, and they just kind of shuffled it off. And then once my parents did their own research and then gave me the option to like learn about Jesus, that's when I was like, whoa, there's more. And then I just started getting more and more into it. So I definitely agree. There's always hope. He's always knocking at the door. Even for believers, non-believers, I feel like he's obviously still there. He's there for everyone.
Absolutely.
It's just, we see it faster because we understand the difference. For people that aren't non-believers, they're going to consider it luck or a coincidence. They're going to think of things that we, just downplay to never bring up the spiritual side, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's good. Is there any times that you feel like you've been at a low that God has pulled you through it, and like, is there any instances that you would care to share?
Absolutely, many times. But the most powerful time I would say was the move to the United States. That was a difficult time for us. We just lost Isabel's dad, and he was the man of the family, right? Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to have my dad in my life. We always had like very difficult relationships, and Isabel's dad was like my dad, right? So we were super close. And when he passed away, everything, I mean, our lives just crushed. And not only that, but a year later, I talked to you about my grandpa, right? My grandpa passed away. So we had 2 losses in 2 years.
Wow.
So that was probably the most difficult time of my life, of our lives, I would say. Isabel's faith was down. She was like, yeah, there's no God. If God was, would exist, he wouldn't have let that happen, right? And I kind of feel the same way at some point. I was like, no, I had the 2 men in my family that I really cared for, were just gone, So it was very difficult. And not only that, but it broke something in our family, in our couple, our marriage was suffering from that. And the bank industry was, I couldn't find any value into it. It was always like more money, and that's all it was, right? So I couldn't really feel that my work was honoring God. And I remember one day, I was driving to work, and I turned off the radio, and there was an American Christian radio that I'd never listened to.
In France?
In France.
Wait, they have cars in France?
In Geneva, to be exact.
Oh,
Yeah,
in Geneva? So they have cars over there, like in the mountains and stuff. They're not on bicycles or like scooters, like Vespas.
They do. And yeah, so I was listening to this radio, and there was a sermon from a pastor that I really appreciate. His name is Walter Pearson, and he was talking about how he was preaching about Joseph's story, right? About how he was, sold by his brothers, and he ended up in prison, and the whole story. And at the end, he became the number 2 in Egypt, because God had plans for him, right? And one thing that he would say that always stick in my head was when God steps in. And when I listened to this sermon, I had an hour drive to go to work, so I listened to the sermon, and I I started crying. I was like, God, are you talking to me right now? Is this what you're trying to tell me, that you can step into my life and change my life? And guess what? It did. So that was the greatest, I mean, yeah, the revelation in my life that God could do something about us, right? So, like I said, my marriage was not the best. The kids were little. My work was not what I was doing at work was not honoring God. So I needed a new start, and that day, so from this was the starting point where God lined up everything in my life to not only quit my job, but look for a business to buy here in Melbourne and start a new life. New life for Isabel and I, for the kids, and just start fresh and start a life with him. Like hand in hand with God, right? And it was life changing, obviously.
Oh, that's good. Oh man, that's crazy. I'm so glad we're doing this because when I'm at work with Steve, because we work together. He's my boss. He's the one I've talked about before. We can't have like deep conversations all the time because you got to tell me what to do. So
We got to work too.
yeah, we gotta work. We gotta work. Now, when you came to America and you started working at the business, were there habits that you still had that you felt like were good habits, but you knew they weren't for God?
Yeah, I mean, there's always things that you do, that you shouldn't do. I mean, we're all human, and we sin. Sin is all over the place, and sometimes you sin without even knowing that you're sinning because you're like, is that right? Is that good or bad? I'm not sure. Where's the edge? Where's the boundaries, right? Um, so yeah, but over time, I've been praying more than I've ever prayed my whole life. For the past 10 years, I would say now. And I always ask God to give me the wisdom and to help me do the right things, right? And even here, so I had my moments where I felt like I was connected to God. I felt like, I was invincible, right? I was like, nothing can happen. I'm so close to God right now. It's perfect. And then, pride takes over. I had my successful years here where everything was going great. And, when things goes good, you're like, I don't need God, actually. I can do it by my own,
Okay.
And, and then something happens in your life and you're like, okay, I'm back to ground zero. Okay, now what do? I turn back to God. So, the bad habits, they're always here because pride, number one, the enemy, number two. The enemy is always trying to take you down. He's always trying to discourage you, especially the closer you get to God, the more the enemy is going to attack you. So we've experienced that, you and me, many times.
I've experienced it everywhere recently. Let me tell you.
So,
Oh my gosh.
I guess it means that we're doing the right thing, but yeah.
Do you have a favorite Bible verse? The one that you personally speak to, like that speaks to you, and like that's like, I don't know, kind of your Bible verse.
I have a few of them.
A few. All right. Well, name off one, two, or all of them.
I think number one is Matthew 18, I believe. God is the light. So God is always the light to our path. We always want to make sure that we look at God. We sometimes we feel like we don't need, especially when things are going good. We feel like we don't need God, but it's not true. So that's probably my favorite.
That's a good one.
I'd like to hit on something. So, yes, the transition from France to America has overall been better. We can all agree on that. but I also do feel like we've gone through a lot of ups and downs also here. There's a lot of things in our lives that have been happening or happening right now. So, but what is the difference between our ups and downs before and after? Because I feel like before it was more of like I'm struggling, like I don't know what to think. Is God even real? Like you said, but I feel like more now in our trials, we pray like as a family. We try to uphold us each other and like keep each other accountable. To just, I feel like we have a lot of time like to just instead of um trying to find other solutions that are God, we lean towards God. So can you like get more into that too?
Yes, that's a good point, Tim. When I was in France, I mean, you guys were little too, but when we were in France, I would wait like last minute, like when I was at the very bottom. That's when I would turn to God because I have no other choice. And I'm thankful that I knew God by then, because if I didn't, things would have been probably different, right? So, but I would always wait for the very last minute to say, okay, I have no other option. I mean, it's only God. If it's not God, then we're done. We're done. Since we moved here, I feel like we've been, we met more Christian people, so we belong to a Christian community, so we have the opportunity to pray for each other. We have the opportunity, and I changed my way of doing things too. I mean, since a few years now, I always start my day with God. I always turn on my YouVersion app, and I read the verse of the day, and I always want to, first thing that I do in the morning is, pray, read my Bible and pray, right? Which I was not doing that in France at all, right? And then, we just changed our habits in general, and we try to put God, first as much as we could. We had up and downs, and during the downs, I gotta admit that, I stepped away from God again, not too long ago. I mean, I'm talking about 3-4 years ago, right? So we were still here. We were already here. I mean, so it's, the devil is always trying to pull you away, no matter what you do, no matter how hard and how invincible, I felt I was, like, not too long ago, right? When everything was doing good, we're making good money, we bought a new house, we bought a new car, blah, 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 and life is good. And then, you kind of step away from God a little bit. And sometimes, you need a refresher, and you need to be surrounded with the right people. And I'm talking about you, Tim. You being, the man that you're becoming helps me to stay connected to God. That's the truth, because I know that, if I'm going through a struggle, we can pray together, right? You or Lena, so that's very helpful.
I would definitely say I wish I made the decisions that you made, Tim, at your age earlier. Like, because you're 16, right? You're almost, no, you just turned 16, right? Yeah, at 16, I definitely was not making the smartest decisions, but I would say that I knew the Lord, but I'm jealous in the way that I don't want to have what you have, but I'm jealous in the way that you understood and saw the importance of it at your age. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like it's difficult because it's kind of like I lived the life where it was the same thing where when I was in France, I was also a bad kid. You can tell my dad, I was a terrible kid.
You're not a terrible kid.
Well, how old were you? Like, you're 16 now.
Yeah, I was. No,
You're
I was
like 5 or 6.
No, but listen, I stole phones.
Like from people?
Yeah.
Like
In school.
He ended up in the principal's office a couple times.
At least like 10 times.
Wait, in like first grade?
Yeah.
They do that in first grade?
Of course.
They do.
Oh my gosh.
He was a troublemaker. That's the truth. Timmy always has been a leader, right? But
Leader
in
of trouble.
in France, he was the leader of trouble. And then when we moved here, thankfully, God used his talent to lead differently, and towards him. So that's kind of cool.
So my point is like, I had my rough times in France, and I feel like the sacrifice that my father and like just my family made to move from the France to the United States, that's where like my like life changed. Like I'm not saying I was a Christian when I was in third grade, but I was also like I was questioning it. Like in France, I didn't care about God. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't want to know. I was just trying to get in trouble with my friends, But when I moved to the United States, I was just questioning myself. I remember crying to my mom. I was like, "Mom, like I don't want to die." I was so scared. I was just like, I'm thinking of like death, and I'm so scared.
Why?
Everyone's scared of death.
Wait, but I understand you were scared of death, but why were you scared of death?
It just came up. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
He always had these questions like, why do we die? Why, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then I came to, then my sister met Isaac, and she got plugged into Isaac's church, and so I attended, and I wanted to know more, but I felt like I wasn't a Christian. I wanted to know more, but I wasn't worthy to be a Christian. I didn't feel worthy over there. And
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's just like I went to my first like retreat. It was like 2 days, but that's when I felt like so like worthless. I felt that everyone was raising their hands, but I wasn't worthy to raise my hand. I'm not good enough, But that's the change. Like the fact that my parents chose to move to the United States, made me like really want to know more about God. And ever since, look at me now. Like
Look at me now.
I guess it's just like God showed me things earlier than others, but I still went through those bad boy days. I threw rocks at cars.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't say I've never done that. That I've never done.
He wanted to set the school on fire.
Oh, I have a funny story about that. So I have a really funny story about. Wait, you caught a bathroom on fire? Is that what you said? Or you almost did?
I wanted to light the school.
You want to light the school on fire? All right. So, do you guys understand what like Boy Scouts is? Like Cub Scouts? Like how Cub Scouts is for like kids first through like 6th grade, and then in 7th grade you go to Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
All right. So in Cub Scouts, there is it's like super super basic. It's like elementary school compared to high. Like it's like elementary school, and then once you go to Boy Scouts is like high school. Okay, so there's a big difference. So one of the things is they go over how fire works. So you need oxygen, you need a fuel source, and then of course you need the ignition, the light. So one day I was practicing, in the backyard, and behind us we probably have about 50 acres of land, and the land was in the process of all of it's going to be wiped out, and the neighborhood was going to be expanded. So, long story short, I'm practicing, and this is at the time when Florida had a drought, like no rain at all. And long story short, a spark hit some leaves, and I caught like 30 acres of fire. And I was probably, 6 or 7, but I caught 30 acres of forest on fire. And I remember I knew I was actually grounded for like 6 months. I couldn't leave the house for 6 months. So, to be honest, like I don't remember the full story, but I feel like that's like what I heard. But Steve, I learned my lesson. But it is a funny story of like me when I was young, dude. It wouldn't surprise me if I could say that I was like not possessed, but I could like see and hear the demonic spirits, because like, dude, I was a bad kid. So I understand what you're saying about being a bad kid really little. And it didn't help because I'm so big that everyone thought I was older than I was. I'd be like 3 years old, 2 years old. And of course, Steve, do 2-year-olds have temper tantrums?
I don't know. Probably not.
They don't? You don't think 2-year-olds have temper tantrums and, freak out and just cry?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So I'd be 2 years old, and kids think I was like people would see me in the mall or whatever, and they'd be like, "You need to get a hold of your kid. He's 5 years," and they're like, "He's 2." So I understand exactly what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
um, so you said, Steve, that there have been times that you've been walking with God, and then times that you took a step back. Recently, since you've been growing your relationship with God, do you feel like the times that you were separated from Him that you thought, well, it's something I feel like we think we're separated, but we're never really separated from God. The times that you were, do you feel like God was trying to show you the hardest? And like, do you have any crazy experiences when you were further away that God was like, hey, I'm here? And like, if you would care to share.
Yes, I mean, and again, you know, I would say the more recent stories that I could have, you know, my relationship with God was not the same anymore. So I was closer to Him, and every time we had a few struggles, and every time we went through difficult times, I could hear the enemy saying, you know, that, you know, I was by myself, that, you know, it was not worth it to trust in God, because this was just lies. God is not here. God doesn't exist. What are you talking about? But, you know, in my heart, I knew that God was here, and I've always, you know, persevered, and I feel like I needed this perseverance to, you know, to build, you know, like my foundations with God. And every time, you know, we have difficulties, every time we have struggles in our lives, it's hard, but it gets us closer to God. And every time you get closer to God, you feel like you're, you know, your foundations are, your roots are like stronger. You know what I mean? And, you know, the past 2 years were not easy, you know, at the business for different reasons. I had moments of discouragement, but I never gave up. You know, I never gave up reading my Bible and praying every day. And I feel like every time, you know, I turned to God, He was always here to answer, you know. And not only that, but I want to say something, you know, the fact that, John, you work with us now makes a big difference, because we can share, you know, our experiences, you know, and our...
He's
you
so
know,
proud.
but that's true. You know, I never had an employee like John, you know, with who I can really share my you know, my faith. And you know, sometimes when I'm down, he would come and he would, you know, he would park the car blasting worship song, and he steps out and he's like, I trust in God. You know? And that's kind of cool. You know, it makes us, you know, it puts a smile on my face, and I'm like, thank you, Lord, you know, because I was down this morning. It was not easy to wake up and go to work, because, you know, different circumstances. But, you know, but John is here, and he always has...
I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you.
That's the truth, man. You know, you always have a big smile, and you always have, you know, oh, the Lord is with us. Nothing can happen, you know. And that's the... Sometimes you say that, you know, as a joke, because that's how you are. But, you know, you're right. You know?
I mean, I say it as a joke, like, Steve, you should already know that. Like, I say it in a joking way, in a way of like, Steve, you should already know that. You shouldn't have to have, you know, other people telling you, because if your heart is with God, you should always know. Like, look at where we are now. Our setup's getting better and better every time. Like, jeez, what next? We're going to have an office space. We're going to have a big sign that says, you know, rest on it. Yeah. Like, actually, that's really good. Like, so, Tim, all right? So, you talk about rest all the time. Like, do you have any goals that are coming up that you want to accomplish with it? Like, is there anything, you know, that you feel like Steve and myself that can help you, that you know, you're, like, struggling with? Like, is there anything that you feel like has been a challenge for you with the podcast? I mean, not the podcast, the rest up side, or the rest side. Sorry.
it's been a lot of ups and downs too. A lot of ups though. A lot of ups. We got to go to Costa Rica. So that was one of the biggest ups of my life. So that was great, but obviously everything can't go as to plan. So
Do you have any plans or anything that they should be looking out for rest that are coming up maybe?
yeah, so we're planning on getting new shirts, new designs up soon. I talked to
No,
someone
it's
new.
not so soon. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I talked to someone new who was willing to do our shirts, and I gotta meet with them and see what's coming up next.
Fun. So, do are we keeping the old website, or are we making a new one?
We're getting rid of the old website.
We're getting rid of it. Okay. All right. So that's gonna change.
Everything's
So
gonna
stay
change.
tuned for that. Okay, Steve, is there anything you wanna add to the podcast, or anything you feel like God's telling you about Tim and myself that we need to do? Is there anything you want to add here before we wrap up?
Yeah, no, I think that what you guys are doing is amazing. I wish I had the faith that you guys have to do that. When I was your age, it took me years to get where I am today. It took me like a lot of struggles and a lot of difficulties in my life.
Are you cramping?
2 hours later.
You're saying
So yeah, I was saying, I wish that when I was your age, I had your faith, and I had this motivation to do something about your faith, and spread the word and spread the gospel like you guys do. Because when I was your age, I was just a stupid teenager, and I was not interested in any of that. So I will always encourage you guys, because I think that what you're doing is amazing, and you guys are gifted. So this is something that God gave you, and just use it for His glory, and keep doing what you're doing. It's good. You're gonna have some ups and downs, Tim. We had problems with the company that was printing the shirts, so now we have to move forward, but that's the enemy trying to stop you. But it's a good thing. If like I said, if we feel the attacks, it means that we're doing the right thing.
Man, that's good, because I'm not gonna lie, Steve. This week I've been attacked so much. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
It's been bad, man. It's been bad. Like, it's been hard to sleep. So anyone out there, want to keep me in their prayers, please do. Steve, keep me in your prayers. Tim, pray for me a little harder, please. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this was entertaining, inspirational. One of those things that you guys will either save or play again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. This has been the Rest Up Podcast, and we'll see you guys next week with Hunter. Oh my gosh, we didn't tell you why Hunter's not here. Oh my gosh, we're saving it till the end. So Hunter isn't here tonight because he had to go to his girlfriend's brother's graduation down south. So we'll be praying for him to have a good time and have a safe time. And he will be here with us next week. So we'll see you guys next week. Peace.